And welcome to today's session for the Student Climate Challenge Summit. We're going to give folks another 30 seconds or go to sign in and get all set up. So hang on for just another second. And we know today is beautiful, so thank you for joining us for this session, and unless you're outside and watching us online. Okay, I will introduce myself. I'm Nancy Quirk, the Energy Program Manager at Sustainable Jersey, and I want to welcome everyone to our session today on renewable energy options. The first thing we want to do is make sure that our session is very interactive. So you've hopefully been on a few sessions already, but we'll show you how to interact with the Zoom. At the bottom of your screen are several buttons that you can use to interact with us. Mainly you'll be using the chat function, and when you use the chat function, be sure to select all panelists and attendees. That way everyone can see what you're saying. So select all panelists and attendees, and if you would, please tell us who you are, which school you're with, and which grade. And while you're typing that in, you also have a function to raise your hand if you have a question. So just click the raise hand function. And if you have a longer question, you can type it into the question and answer box. So here we go. We've got some Williamstown 7th grade. And if you'd also tell us how you're joining us. We know that a lot of you are joining maybe from home as individuals, as you do every day when you attend to school these days. And some of you are in a classroom with your teacher. So if you're in a classroom with your teacher, please let us know. And teachers will invite you, whenever we ask questions, to submit answers or questions for your whole class. So if you need to take a poll of your class and say, what's our answer to this particular question? You can go ahead and do that. Great, look at all these schools coming in. This is fantastic. 6th grade, 7th grade, excellent. And if you would click on the, oops, okay, thank you for the poll. Right. Okay, we're also going to ask you to use the raise hand function. So please raise your hand if you've attended any of the previous Climate Summit sessions or have watched the recordings. So while you're doing that, we're assuming that you've probably attended some of the sessions already or watched some of the recordings, and all of the sessions are building together on a few basic and very important questions for us. The overarching themes for this summit are, why is climate change happening? So we've had some sessions to actually drill down on that particular issue. How will climate change impact us and future generations? So again, we've taken a look at that. And what we're really going to focus on today in this session is, what can we do about climate change as an individual, community, and a society? So we're going to go over some very exciting renewable energy options, particularly related to community solar, with our speaker, who is Steve Sunderhauf from Atlantic City Electric. And I will turn, oh wait, I won't turn the session over just yet, because I will invite you to keep your eyes out at the end of the session for a survey about the session. So I'll let Steve share his screen and get started with his presentation. Steve, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your session.
I will. Let's see. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet. There we are. Very good.
Yeah. So my name is Steve Sunderhauf. I work for the Atlantic City Electric Company. We operate 3 utilities. I work out of Washington, D.C. We operate Pepco, Delmarva Power and Light, and Atlantic City Electric. We basically serve distribution electricity in New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and the District of Columbia. And we're part of the Exelon Corporation, and Exelon operates several other utilities, including Philadelphia Electric, Baltimore Gas and Electric, and Commonwealth Edison in Chicago. So that's what we're about. And here is a linesman working on one of our lines, which is kind of the front screen. So I work for the Utility of the Future team at Atlantic City Electric Company. And so we look at new initiatives, and we look at ways that our utility industry is evolving and how the distribution system can fit and basically provide the needs for the customers and help the state of New Jersey meet its policy goals. And community solar is one of those policy goals at this point in time. And so what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover what is solar energy, how do we derive electricity from solar energy, what is community solar, and what advantages does that provide, and then cover where can community solar be located in New Jersey, and then who in New Jersey can participate in community solar. Then we'll get into a little bit of the terminology of community solar so that you understand the lingo that we use in the industry and in the community, because that'll be important if you decide to go out and share this information with other customers or with policymakers or perhaps a local newspaper, that type of thing. And then community solar project examples, so you have a sense for how this projects are structured and what a possible community solar assignment might be for you or your classmates. Okay, so first question is really a shared question that we'd like you to answer, is what is solar energy? And I have 4 choices here. A, it's what students get when they play outside. They get a lot of solar energy. 2 is it the opposite of moon energy? And C, it is the power of the sun. Or D, it is electricity produced by a photovoltaic array that converts solar energy into electricity. So if you could take a moment to kind of cast your vote and explain what you think that it constitutes. Okay. Well, that's so it's not when they play outside. Yeah, that's not what I intended to speak. It's not really the opposite of moon energy. Never tried that. It is the power of the sun, certainly the case, but what we're going to focus on is how electricity is produced by a photovoltaic array that converts solar energy into electricity. And so then I have a brief video that I'd like to share with you about how PV arrays work and exactly how they convert the energy from the sun into electricity. And this is a video that was prepared by the US Department of Energy and provides a nice kind of overall understanding of how photovoltaic arrays actually convert solar energy into electricity. So could you play the video at this point? Is it Heather that you're going to play the video? Yeah.
All right, we all know that the sun's energy creates heat and light, but it can also be converted to make electricity, and lots of it. One technology is called solar photovoltaics, or PV for short. You've probably seen PV panels around for years, but recent advancements have greatly improved their efficiency and electrical output. Enough energy from the sun hits the Earth every hour to power the planet for an entire year. Here's how it works. You see, sunlight is made up of tiny packets of energy called photons. These photons radiate out from the sun, and about 93 million miles later, they collide with a semiconductor on a solar panel here on Earth. It all happens at the speed of light. Take a closer look, and you can see the panel is made up of several individual cells, each with a positive and a negative layer, which create an electric field. It works something like a battery. So, the photons strike the cell, and their energy frees some electrons in the semiconductor material. The electrons create an electric current, which is harnessed by wires connected to the positive and negative sides of the cell. The electricity created is multiplied by the number of cells in each panel and the number of panels in each solar array. Combined, a solar array can make a lot of electricity for your home or business. This rooftop solar array powers this home, and the array on top of this warehouse creates enough electricity for about 1,000 homes. Okay, there are some obvious advantages to solar PV technology. It produces clean energy, it has no emissions, no moving parts, it doesn't make any noise, and it doesn't need water or fossil fuels to produce power. And it can be located right where the power is needed, in the middle of nowhere, or it can be tied into the power grid. Solar PV is growing fast, and it can play a big role in America's clean energy economy, anywhere the sun shines.
Great. Okay, can you see my screen again?
Yes.
Great. So one of the things about solar energy, many states, including New Jersey, have large goals for additional solar electricity production. And the idea there is to have a energy source that produces zero air emissions and is clean and is abundant to power electricity in New Jersey and other states. So many states are moving fairly aggressively towards solar production. And one of the things that we've seen in the industry is the cost of solar has dropped dramatically. And so more and more customers are able to put solar on their rooftops. And there are a lot of state initiatives that are designed to encourage additional solar resources. And some of our states have very aggressive renewable portfolio standards, including New Jersey. Some go up to 100% for renewable energy sources. And that's all in the context of concerns about the climate and concerns about the sustainability of current generation sources in the US. So a couple of examples of clean zero carbon technologies. Carbon reductions are really one of the central goals in climate change right now. A couple of sources that are big. One is hydro, that's dams, which basically create electricity when the water flows through the dam. Then there's nuclear, and nuclear basically has no air emissions associated with it when it produces energy, so it's very clean. There are all obviously concerns about nuclear waste materials over time. Wind and wind both onshore and offshore provide basically a clean source of energy without creating air emissions. And then solar, which is really becoming quite prevalent in many of our markets, where customers, individual customers, and large solar fields are being connected to the grid. And they can sit anywhere from on rooftops to on fields to on landfills to on barges that are floating in the ocean. And so there are a variety of places where they can be sited. And there are different viewpoints about what the best place to site a solar array is. And then biofuels are also another source, and biofuel products even are in gasoline at this point. But you can also use biofuels to generate electricity. Couple of the things that are quite large in New Jersey have some scale. There's a pump hydro facility in New Jersey in the central of the state where water is pumped up. And then during peak hours, it's allowed to flow downstream and then generate electricity. Nuclear is fairly big in New Jersey. There are a number of nuclear plants that are operated. Several of them are operated partially by our company, Exelon, in New Jersey, but not by the utilities side of the business. Wind is becoming very large in New Jersey. There's a lot of proposals for offshore wind of thousands of megawatts off of Atlantic City, New Jersey, and that'll enter into southern New Jersey as a source of electricity. And solar is big with a lot of homes and a lot of businesses. Literally tens of thousands of businesses and homes in New Jersey currently have solar. And biofuels, not as large a presence, but also in existence in New Jersey. And if you go, my next question is, what is community solar? And there are a series of answers that you can provide. And if, I guess, Renee, do you want to show the questions out there to the community and the students? And so I'll just walk through the answers. It is a community that is placed in a sunny location. The next one is, it is a solar array size to meet the electricity needs of an entire community. And the third one is, it is a large solar array that permits multiple utility customers to purchase a percentage of the energy output. And the last one is, it is a solar array that has been purchased by a New Jersey town or city. So the question is, what is community solar? What do you think it is? And how do you think, how is it actually structured? So you take a chance at answering those questions and think about what you think community solar is, and then we'll talk a little further about it. All right, so what is community solar? It's a community that is placed in a sunny location. Yeah, there's a lot of sunny locations, but yeah, that's not really the answer we are looking for. It is a solar array sized to meet the electricity needs of an entire community. It's certainly a possibility. One of the challenges with solar is it only produces energy when the sun shines. And so energy has to be provided instantaneously on the system whenever it's needed. So one of the challenges there is at night, and when there are clouds in the sky, the energy production out of solar arrays is basically zero at that point. So, so solar energy always has to have additional sources of energy. They could be batteries. They could be other sources of generation during other times. The third one, it is a large solar array that permits multiple utility customers to purchase a percentage of the energy output. And that's actually the answer for how community solar is structured. So individual customers can purchase a share of the output of this large array system and then have that credited back against their bill. And we'll walk through the mechanics of that. And it is a solar array that has been purchased by a New Jersey town or a city. That's a growing possibility as the regulations change. But really the answer that fits most closely with what's happening in New Jersey is really the third answer, or answer C, large solar array that permits multiple utility customers to purchase a percentage of the energy output, right? So, and then kind of walking through what is community solar. And on the left side of the screen, you see a large solar array. This is in a field. Typically in New Jersey, one of the locational preferences is brownfield sites. So it could be the top of a landfill that no longer can, that other things can't be placed on top of. It could be part of an old industrial park. It could be top of a parking lot. It could be on top of a commercial office building. And it's a PV array that generates electricity and exports the power to the grid after connecting to the grid. So it has to be sited at a location that can connect to our electric distribution system and export energy directly into the grid. And then that energy is shared across the grid with other customers. And individual project developers establish a subscribing organization that sells subscriptions to electric distribution utility customers. So I, as a developer, go in and create this farm, and then I retain a organization that goes out and sells portions of the energy output from the array field to match with their personal energy use. And that subscribing energy organization can be anything from a nonprofit organization, or it could be a for-profit organization, something that can basically gather community members that wish to own a piece of the solar arrays. And it provides subscribing customers with access to a portion of the array's energy. And this energy is then credited back by Atlantic City Electric to the customer's traditional electricity bill. So if you take a percentage of this output, we'll take that energy production and credit it back against your electric bill for Atlantic City Electric. So subscribing customers benefit from solar energy without the expense of installing their own PV and PV array, I should say array rather than arrayly. But so the idea is it's a less expensive way to participate directly in solar energy. So you feel good about doing things that are good for the environment, and you have a way to offset a portion of the costs of your electricity bill. And you can take pride in ownership of a solar array, even though it may be located miles away from your home or your business. Any questions before we move to the next slide? Oops, okay. And so here, this is kind of a diagram of what a community solar array looks like. And if you look at the upper left is what's labeled as a CREFT is a community renewable energy facility. And that's a solar array on a field that's on the upper left portion of the screen. And on the lower right portion of the screen is a community renewable energy facility located on the rooftop of a commercial office building. And if you look at the homes, the individual homes, where they're labeled subscribers, are customers who have elected to purchase a portion of the output of the community solar array and have their bills offset as a result. And then there are customers here. Can you guys see my cursor? Can you see the cursor as well?
Yes.
Yeah, if you look here, these are net energy metering. These are customers who have elected to put solar arrays directly on their homes. And so they have served part of their energy needs through the solar arrays on their homes. When they're not using the energy and it's producing energy, it can export to the distribution system. And this helps to offset a portion of their electricity consumption. And if you look up in the middle of the screen at the very top, what this is a traditional generating station that produces energy for use also in the community. So as you can see, the solar arrays basically export as they can when the sun is shining. But when the sun isn't shining, either during cloud periods or storms or at night, these facilities cannot produce enough energy to serve the community needs. So it gives you a sense for how this is working. And the wires that are shown here are essentially the ACE distribution wires that basically move energy from one location to another. And the big change in the industry is the old way of doing business on the electricity side was central power plants that would then take the wires to the individual homes and meet the electricity requirements of each individual customer. The new model basically has more and more distributed energy resources injecting into the grid at different points. And so we're working on our system to basically accommodate each of these kind of changes in the way the grid is used. So that's kind of an important factor. All right, so we move down to the next one. One of the things that we would stress is the benefits of community solar. And it is an opportunity for all electricity customers to participate in solar. And customers who rent apartments or live in other home rentals can participate because they don't own a home where solar arrays can be placed on the rooftop. There are many residential customers who live deep in the woods or live with a roof that isn't oriented properly towards the sun, and allows customers in that situation to also participate in solar. And it allows low and moderate income customers with access to the funds to install their own PV arrays to actually still participate in the production and the benefits of solar energy. And it provides an opportunity to all of these customers to reduce their monthly electricity bill. Because of the requirements, all of the utilities pay basically the full retail value for the energy that's produced if it's exported to the system. And in the case of community solar, all of it is. So for example, in southern New Jersey, in ACE, we provide a bill credit of about 14 cents per kilowatt hour produced by this community solar facilities. And we'll walk through the mechanics of that in a little bit. And the idea is to produce electricity without creating air emissions, right? We all like that. No water is required for energy production, and the energy source is unlimited as long as the sun is still burning. The energy source is essentially unlimited for us on Earth. Okay, and then we have a third question here is where can a community solar project be located? And so there are 4 possible answers. Only on a rooftop where it is sufficiently large and strong and where grid interconnection is possible. B is only on a floating barge that will not sink and is near the electric grid. C is anywhere adequate space is available and grid interconnection is possible. And the last one is only over a parking lot which is sufficiently large and grid interconnection is possible. So I'd like you to make your selections there, and we can talk a little bit about how that process works. All right, so the first answer is only on a rooftop which is sufficiently large and strong and where grid interconnection is possible. That's certainly a possibility, but it's certainly not the only possibility. There's a lot of desire in New Jersey for the urban areas to put solar arrays on rooftops to avoid using land that might be used for another purpose. So it's certainly been something that many have advocated, but it's not the only choice. Only on a floating barge that will not sink and is near the electric grid. There are also many proposals for floating barges to allow solar arrays to be placed on the barges and then export to the grid. There are also floating arrays that float on the surface of waterways and then can export to the grid. And the idea again is to avoid taking up additional land for solar arrays, which is one of the more controversial items related to solar arrays. And the next one is anywhere adequate space is available and grid interconnection is possible. And that's really the heart of where most of our jurisdictions, including New Jersey, have focused, but again, heavily preferred to be on either rooftops or brownfields, such as a landfill that's closed or an industrial park that's no longer in use and can't be used for another purpose. So there's a strong preference in New Jersey to put it on land that's not used for other purposes, such as agriculture or homes or things like that. And only over a parking lot which is sufficiently large and grid interconnection possible. So we've heard everything from proposals where you place the solar over a highway system or in the central portion of say the New Jersey Turnpike, and ideas where areas are available. The interesting thing about southern New Jersey is in the ACE service territory, there's a lot of land availability in that region compared to the northern part of the state. And so a lot of developers have come down and looked at southern New Jersey and selected sites in that location, which provide, less expensive land and more available land. And so that's certainly something that we deal with in southern New Jersey. But it also creates how we interconnect to the grid is really important because we want to continue to provide reliable and quality electricity. And it has the potential of interfering depending on where the sites are located. And these interconnections can be expensive. So hence the need of developers to site them where they're most readily and cheaply connected to the grid. Move down to the next item. We're going to walk through some terminology now. And I'll go through this pretty slowly just so that everyone becomes familiar with it. Solar or photovoltaic array, it's essentially panels that convert sunlight into electricity. So it's basically converting photons into electricity that then is exported into the electricity grid and flows wherever it is needed to go, wherever it's needed. Developer is the entity responsible for financing, designing, and building community solar projects. And we've seen everyone from nonprofit organizations to municipal authorities to for-profit developers developing and designing systems, and then making those systems, proposing those systems to the Board of Public Utilities in New Jersey for approval. We just received 400 applications statewide recently in earlier February for the second year of the pilot program that we're in the middle of for community solar. And then subscribing organization is, again, the entity selected by the developer to educate and recruit customers. And we find that one of the challenges with community solar is explaining to customers what community solar is and how it can benefit them. And a lot of times customers think it's too good to be true. They don't understand how a community solar facility could export energy and why they would want to pay for something that isn't either on their rooftop or something that's just down the street. But it could be, it could be 100 miles located away from their home. So it's the location doesn't matter. You can subscribe to a facility no matter where it's located, so long as it's located in the ACE service territory, for example. And that gives these developers a lot of flexibility, but it also means that it's harder to explain and sell the product to customers when they can't actually see it and feel it and tell their neighbors to go look at the great things they're doing for the environment. So one of the challenges then is really educating and recruiting customers. And customer subscribers, these are individual customers who subscribe to a portion of the community solar output. Typically, a subscriber purchases a percentage of the community solar output that essentially matches their energy use at home, or matches a portion of their energy use at home. And they pay a fee for that, but that's offset with a electric bill credit that's received. And that's referred to as the subscriber bill credit. So the electric bill credit received by customers subscribing to a community solar is for a residential customer in ACE, New Jersey, is about 14 cents per kilowatt hour produced. So the idea there for subscribers and all of these entities is you want to have a subscriber fee, essentially ideally that's lower than the bill credit that you would receive, so that you can get not only a dollar advantage, but you can get the pride of owning into the solar array and promoting the use of clean energy in New Jersey. And so the benefit, obviously, if you're a low or moderate income customer, is you can help make your electric bills more affordable by reducing your monthly electricity costs. All right, so going to the next one, continuing with key terminology, one of the things that's very important to understand is electric energy and how we measure it, right? So typically when we're dealing with community solar, we're looking at measurements in the kilowatt hours or megawatt hours. And a typical residential home consumes about 1,000 kilowatt hours of energy each month, or about 12,000 kilowatt hours a year. And if you include apartments, it's a bit lower than that. It's about 800 kilowatt hours a month across southern New Jersey. But just to give you a sense for how the math on this works, so an electric energy measurement is 1,000 watt hours equals 1 kilowatt hour of consumption, and 1,000 kilowatt hours equals 1 megawatt hour of consumption. So when you're dealing with individual homes and businesses, you're typically talking in kilowatt hours. When you're dealing about large solar fields and many customers, you're dealing in typically megawatt hour calculations. And I'll give you an example. A 10 watt LED light bulb used for 4 hours uses basically 4 hours times 10 watts, or 40 watt hours of energy. And then you can convert that to kilowatt hours from there, and megawatt hours from there. So if you want to understand the core mechanics of the electric utility industry, you have to understand how this math works and be aware of how it's set up. The other thing I wanted to take a moment to introduce to you is renewable energy credits. And there are renewable portfolio standards in New Jersey and each of the states we operate. And each supplier of energy in the market is required to match their energy supply with a certain number of renewable energy credits. And every renewable resource in New Jersey earns renewable energy credits. So you get one renewable energy credit for every single megawatt hour that's produced. And these RECs can then be sold and traded with energy suppliers to meet their mandated renewable portfolio requirement. And these have been very financially beneficial to community solar facilities and other solar facilities and any renewable resource in New Jersey. And there's actually a trading operation that's run through the wholesale market exchange, which is called PJM EIS GATS for those of you who are interested, but it allows these RECs to be also traded. So the developers also get RECs to support their product offering of community solar. And this benefits everybody, right? Because it reduces the amount of air emissions in the environment, and the renewable energy credits are then part of the supply requirements in each of these marketplaces. All right, any questions so far that we should answer? Okay, all right, moving on to the next one. I have another question for you, and that is, which electricity customers can subscribe to a community solar project? And A, only lower income New Jersey residential customers, and B is only customers who have paid their New Jersey state income taxes, and C is any electricity customer of ACE, and D is only electricity customers of ACE who care about the environment. And so I'd like you to think about that and select your answers. Okay, so yeah, it's not only lower income customers that could participate. All right, so you're right about that. One of the targets in policymakers in New Jersey is that they want low and moderate income customers to have an opportunity to participate. And one of the goals in New Jersey is they're seeking about 40% of the individuals who participate in community solar to actually be low and moderate income, because they think it advantages customers in those income categories because it helps them reduce their electricity bill and offers them an opportunity to participate in renewable energy where they might not otherwise have that opportunity. Only customers who have paid their New Jersey state income taxes. Well, no, luckily it's it's not just that, but it's really any electricity customer of ACE, in our case, can participate in community solar if there's a facility available for them to participate in. 3 projects are currently under construction. 2 are large solar fields of about 5 megawatts on site in on landfill, an old abandoned landfill that's now closed. And the third one is also on a landfill that's closed of about 2.5 megawatts. So it has the capability of producing quite a bit of energy and having thousands of subscribers. And only electricity customers of ACE who care about the environment. Well, no, environment is one aspect of it, but there is also the ability to lower your energy bill below what it otherwise would be. But that's one of the motivating factors for customers. All right, so I have a slide that kind of shows you in some complexity, and I'll walk you through this. If you start with this system over here, this is a community solar array. In this case, we marked it as utility owned, but right now they're all private in New Jersey. And basically, we've sold a portion of that energy from this community solar facility to this low and moderate income customer subscriber who lives in this nice house. And that customer then would pay a subscriber fee to the developer. In this case, it was Atlantic City Electric. Oops, sorry. And then they would pay their monthly electric bill to Atlantic City Electric. But in return, they would receive a bill credit. And sorry about that. And energy would be assigned back based on the level of percentage of subscription back from that community solar facility. And the benefit for low-income customers is they're better able to afford their electric bill. And there's some ability to potentially socialize some of their costs across the various customers who all have to basically pay in for the rates that are paid for community solar. And then we have an interface with the wholesale marketplace where suppliers get a portion of the energy that's assigned from the community solar facility. And then we get a wholesale energy value to that energy export. Again, the suppliers are receiving that benefit. And then the developer receives the REC revenues that are available, the renewable energy credits. And then the developer also has to pay in for any wholesale market energy needs that are required. And if you look still to the left a little bit further, there's PV energy basically exchanges into the wholesale market, and the renewable energy credits are also sold into the market. So it gives you a sense for how the mechanics on this work. It gets fairly complicated when you're dealing with large grids and large interconnections. There's a whole series of dollar exchanges and cost allocations, and then revenue flow and how consumers participate, just to give you a sense for that level of complexity. One of the other things I would point out for those of you interested in potentially working the energy field, there's a lot of opportunities to work in different components of the energy field, everything from a developer to a subscribing organization to working for the utilities to working for the wholesale PJM market to being a solar installer, right? So there's a lot of different job opportunities in these kinds of fields. And one of the things we would point out with renewables is it is going to be the source of a lot of job growth in the future. And it is now, everything from wind to solar arrays and that type of thing. So if you have an interest, great time to basically delve into this because the whole electric utility industry is really changing at this point. And it's going to look a lot different 10 years from now than it does today. And so it's a great opportunity to be in the field. All right, so moving on to the next thing, I wanted to give you an example of a community solar project example. And in this case, I came up with a project name. I call it Solar King. You know, the idea is, you know, what's going to inspire customers to basically subscribe to your project. Solar King sounds pretty good to me. And the idea is it's going to be located in a specific location. In this case, I called it Seal Town, being near by the coast. And so that's the location where it's sited. And the idea of this location for this theoretical example is it's something that can be seen from the highway so that if you wanted to go out and see your solar array in the community solar facility you subscribe to, you could tell your neighbors where to drive to it. You could go take pictures. And that's an important feature for many people. And in this case, it's a 500 kW photovoltaic array capable of producing 750,000 kilowatt hours of energy annually. And if you think about it, you know, there's about 12,000 kilowatt hours of energy consumed by a single individual home. So you can imagine a lot of residential customers or a lot of business customers could subscribe to this array. The developer is aptly named Sun Inc. And the subscribing organization I've called this Sun Farmers, right? An organization dedicated to assisting New Jersey electricity consumers reduce their environmental footprint. And there are a lot of organizations, both those geared towards low and moderate income groups and also towards environmental groups that are really actively promoting the use of solar, and community solar is one way to get there rapidly. Because again, large fields properly sited, properly maintained, producing large quantities of solar produced energy and exporting it into the grid. And in this case, suggested that 100 residential customers would subscribe, and each one would purchase 1% of the annual output of the energy array. or about 77,500 kilowatt hours annually. And one of the things I would note, which is kind of interesting if you ever have a chance to go there, there are solar calculators in each latitude and longitude, which will give you how many kilowatt hours a typically array can produce. So it's pretty interesting. Obviously, the further south you go, the more kilowatt hours can be produced because the sun shines at a better angle and with more intensity throughout the year. But the calculators allow you to basically calculate what your solar arrays can produce in a particular location. And then the electric bill credit then that goes back. So if you subscribe to 7,500 kilowatt hours, your bill credit would be about 14 cents per month per kilowatt hour, which is a bill credit of $1,000.50 annually, or $1,050 annually, or about $87.50 per month. So you'd be seeing that on your electric bill. If you subscribe to this facility for 7,500 kilowatt hours, you'd be getting that bill credit every month on your ACE electric bill. And that would be offsetting your otherwise existing bill costs. So it's kind of a nice feature. And so with the monthly subscriber fees, because the developers have to basically pay for their costs of installing the equipment. In this case, I said, well, the subscriber fee could be $240 annually or about $20 a month. And one of the challenges when you educate customers is that they say, well, wait, there's a subscriber fee. But the idea is, but you have this offsetting bill credit that you get back. And so it does cost money for the developers to put these fields in place, but there are all these environmental and financial benefits potentially available. And the renewable energy credits for the developer go back to the developer. In this case, it's 750,000 kilowatt hours annually, which is the same as 750 megawatt hours, or 750 RECs. And then the developer is free to sell those renewable energy credits to other suppliers in the market so that they can meet their renewable energy obligations for New Jersey. And those REC values can have, substantial values over time. And you have to look at the REC prices because they vary somewhat, but each state has a market for renewable energy credits, the ones that we operate in. The vast majority of states have renewable energy credit markets and renewable portfolio standard requirements. So that's what generates that. And that's kind of another benefit of the field. And so the question 5 that I wanted to ask, I'm just checking on our time here, is how would you market or educate potential customer participants? Because this is honestly the biggest challenge to community solar, I think, is getting that information out to customers, because everybody's pretty skeptical. They don't have a lot of time, and they don't really understand exactly how these systems work. It's easy when there's a solar array on your roof, a little bit harder when the solar array is down 15 or 20 miles from your house, understanding how the mechanics on this work. And so what would you do in terms of marketing? Would you describe the electric bill credits? Would you describe the environmental benefits of solar power? Would you describe the actual community solar project and identify its location? And would you rely on nonprofit groups to market and educate customers about the benefits? Or would you rely on the electric utility and market to educate customers? So think about which of these, if you were a customer making a decision about community solar, which of these things would you rely on the most to make your decision? What would be most persuasive? So if you think of it that way, and that's obviously different customers are going to be motivated by different factors, but do think about what would make you motivated to basically subscribe to community solar. And in our Maryland market, there has been some challenges at times getting customers to sign up. So one answer is describe electric bill credits. It's certainly a benefit. 2 is describe environmental benefits of solar power. That looks like that was the winning selection. And, if that motivates you the most, and for many customers, that'll be very motivational, particularly all of the concern about climate change and using solar power, it can be very motivating. describe the actual community solar project and identify its location. So it's kind of a seeing is believing item. If you can see it and believe it, and then you can tell your neighbors where it's located so they too can look at it, that could be very motivating, because knowing that it's real, right? So one of the things, if it's not immediately on your rooftop, it may not be as real unless you know where it's located and you can actually go and take a look at it. Rely on nonprofit groups to market and educate customers about the benefits, right? You may have more trust in a nonprofit group that's not motivated by financial incentives, but rather is motivated by some altruistic issue, serving the needs of low and moderate income groups, meeting climate challenges by providing more access to community solar. Um, you know, that type of motivation may be motivating these nonprofit groups. Certainly, maybe they're more believable. Rely on the electric utility and market, and to market it basically. And I had another "and" in there. I don't know why I had that, but the idea here is that the electric utility, we serve all of the customers. We're heavily regulated, and so we're going to be an honest conveyor of information. So that's certainly another way to get that information out there. But again, I want you guys to think about what you would do actually to begin to think about how to promote community solar and how to get the message of its value across. And if you look down at the possible assignment, and as I understand it, each of you have an opportunity to do one or more assignments, and try to develop a kind of an assignment that might make sense in your local community and things that you could actually proactively do. So if your task were tasked with promoting community solar, you might do a couple different things. One is design an educational campaign to explain the benefits of community solar to your neighbors and other members of your community. And it might become much more believable if you're located in the community, and if you're a student in school, what you think about the project and what you think the benefits are could mean a lot more to a neighbor or another community member than somebody external to your community might mean. And people might be more apt to listen to your approach and the rationale for your benefits. And you might be able to motivate a lot of customers to participate in the product. All right. So say, hey, this is why I think community solar is a good thing. And you can walk through the list of benefits. Two is you can meet with local officials to promote community solar projects. And again, local officials are probably quite willing to meet with students and to kind of listen to their perspective of how to make the environment cleaner, how to promote community solar projects, how to make solar more accessible to more and more customers, how to help low and moderate income customers, but how to do things which make New Jersey a better place to live. Three, work to identify site locations for community solar and share the possible sites with local officials. One of the struggles that a lot of the developers have is figuring out what sites might be available. You could go to a commercial building rooftop. You could go to a warehouse that has a lot of roof space. You recall that the video that I showed you had a roof space that could accommodate thousands of solar arrays that could then power thousands of homes. And so there are potential locations in each community that could really accommodate community solar. And that'd be one thing that you could go out and do kind of a survey of your community and see what sites might be available. And the next one that I came up with, which is writing an article for your local newspaper, explaining community solar and describing its benefits. And again, I think, that becomes more powerful if, you're a student in the local school and you're writing a letter into your local newspaper or article that's describing community solar and perhaps including some photographs of solar. That's more likely to be read than if it was an article from some other entity where individuals weren't familiar with who that was or what that might be and constitute. So these are some of the ideas that we've had related to doing community solar. And again, we're dealing with increasing quantities of community solar across all of our service territories. And interestingly enough, in the District of Columbia, there's a program called Solar for All that helps provide kind of low-income urban customers with an opportunity to really participate in community solar. In the case in the District of Columbia, these solar arrays are located on commercial rooftops and residential rooftops, and even in some cases local community park. But in a place like New Jersey, where there's greater availability of land, it would be located probably in an area where the solar arrays could even be bigger in size. But it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, it can be basically small to up to 5 megawatts, or fairly large sized in New Jersey. So just to think about where these things might be sited, and make your recommendations accordingly. And I think that was the last slide that I had. Were there questions that you guys had, or any discussion that you'd like to offer?
Thanks, Stephen. I don't see any questions. If you don't mind, I actually have a map I can show of community solar projects in New Jersey,
Great.
so folks can get a sense. So give me 1 second.
Do I need to stop sharing my screen, or can you...
I think I can override you.
Oh, good. There you go. Yeah.
So you see if I can get this to show. So just in case you all are interested, these are the current projects that have been approved in New Jersey. So there are some down in Atlantic City Electric service territory, and several in JCP&L and PSE&G. So most of these, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, are still being constructed. I think one up in Perth Amboy is the first one that the governor did the ribbon cutting last week or so. It switched on, but these are the projects that are currently being built. And let me see. So this is just another picture of how people subscribe. So you subscribe to a percent of that large solar array. This is on top of a big warehouse. And it just shows that, this person lives in a rental unit. This is a small business. They subscribe to a small portion. This is a church. They subscribe to a small portion, and this is another household. So it's a subscriber-based system, which is really pretty amazing. And then I thought some of the students might be interested in this very, very cool interactive tool. So you can go, and this is the Department of Environmental Protection website, so the NJDEP, and there's a couple of different tools. And if you just go to this website, for those of you who like to play around with interactive maps, it is just incredibly cool. You can look at this particular tool and plug in your town name and see all the available places where solar could go in your town. So just to give you, if you want to grab that, I don't have the chat to put that link into the chat. I don't know, Renee, if you can grab it. I can't grab it from what I'm doing right now. So I will stop and ask Renee, I can't see the chat, if any questions have come in.
No questions have come in, but we're almost out of time. But does any student have a question before we wrap it up?
Let's see. Well, while you're thinking, keep thinking, but think fast. I really want to thank the program sponsors, the Drum Thwackett Foundation, Atlantic City Electric, and Exelon Foundation for supporting this entire climate summit. And even though there have been a number of sessions already, there's still more to come. So we do invite you to join us for the next sessions. And, food and climate action, communicating about climate, and then a kind of a big wrap up on careers in energy. So I just heard a lot of really fun careers. We don't think about energy as being a marketplace. We think about how energy is produced and how we use it, but all of the things that Steve talked about today just open up the door to any subject you're interested in would probably be a great fit for energy. So we hope you can join us for some of these other sessions. Teachers on the line, I want to bring your attention to upcoming, oops, it looks like we actually missed one already, but upcoming professional development sessions, and definitely want to invite everyone to take the survey that will pop up once we sign off. There is a contest that is wrapped up with this whole summit. So the contest rules are available for you. Registration opens on the 15th. So definitely be thinking about what kind of project you could do in your community to educate or engage your community, particularly in this case about community solar. And we are looking very forward to see what you decide to do. Steve, Renee, did you want to add any final comments?
Yeah, no, I would say, yeah, thank you for listening to the presentation. And yeah, do think about how you can get involved, whether it be now or in the future as a career opportunity. There is going to be a lot of growth related to improving climate and dealing with how we produce energy and provide that to consumers. So I think it's a great field to be in. It's a great time to be in this field. So do think heavily about it, and it's pretty motivating for many students.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So thank you very much for joining in with us, and please do complete the survey. We hope to be offering a similar summit maybe next year, and so your feedback would help us to develop summit sessions that based on your feedback. So with that, I'll close out today's session. Thank you, Steve, very much. Very informative. Such an exciting time. And thank you, Renee, for helping out. And thank you to everyone who joined us today.